It started with a glass of orange juice that tasted slightly off. That might sound trivial, but sometimes truth slips into your life sideways, like a draft under a locked door. The day was humid, unnaturally so for late September, and I remember how the condensation from that glass slid over my fingers as I stared at her across the breakfast table. She was scrolling her phone with a smirk she didn't try to hide, wearing my old college hoodie like it belonged to someone else now. I said good morning. She didn't look up. I watched her lips move silently as she typed something out. Then she chuckled. At a text, not me. Not the man sitting 3 feet away who she once said made her feel like the world stopped spinning when he smiled. I remember that exact line because she whispered it to me the night my dad died. She held my face and said it like a prayer. Now she couldn't even fake eye contact. I should have asked right then who she was texting, but I didn't. Maybe because a part of me already knew and asking would make it real. Maybe because people in love are experts in self-deception. Or maybe I was just afraid to find out how deep the rot went. By noon, I was back in the garage, pretending to clean. My hands were busy, but my mind was replaying that laugh she gave her phone. It wasn't the laugh she used with me. There was a different note to it. Something lower. More private. I opened a drawer for spare rags and found a card. A greeting card. Tucked under a pile of receipts and old tape. It was addressed to her, not me. No envelope. Just the card. Inside, in handwriting I didn't recognize, it read, I still taste you. Thursday was impossible to forget. No name. No closing. Just that one sentence curved in blue ink across a pink and gold card with a cartoon fox wearing a party hat. The air snapped in half. I stared at it, waiting for some alternate explanation to materialize, like it was a sick joke or some kind of strange misunderstanding. But the card smelled like her perfume. Not the one she wore around me. The one she kept in the glove box of her car. She said she used it for emergencies. I never asked what counted as an emergency. I went back inside. My heart wasn't racing. It was doing something worse. It was steady, too steady, like the quiet right before a building caves in. She was in the kitchen now, humming as she poured wine into a coffee mug like it was normal. She didn't drink wine before 6 p.m. She once rolled her eyes at brunch mimosas and called it alcoholic cosplay. And yet there she was, wearing lipstick, at 1 p.m., drinking wine out of a mug. On a Tuesday, I held the card in my hand. Didn't hide it, just held it. She turned around, saw it, and froze for half a second. Just a flash. But it was enough. I saw it. The recognition. The fear. The quick recalibration of her expression. Then she smiled. Like a politician. Like someone used to lying and winning. Oh, she said. That's from my friend Valerie. She's dramatic. It's a joke. We went out Thursday. Girls' night. She reached for the card like I was holding her grocery list, not a grenade. I pulled it back. Why would she say she still tastes you? The smile didn't falter. She shrugged like I was being dramatic now. She's being gross. She's got this inside joke thing where she talks like we're dating. It's stupid. You know how she is. No, I didn't. I'd met Valerie once. She didn't look like someone who wrote about tasting my wife. I said nothing. Just stared at her. Watched how her nostrils flared. How her fingers curled slightly around the edge of the counter. She wasn't scrambling to explain because she didn't know how to lie. She was scrambling because I'd never caught her before. Then she said something I didn't expect. Are you going to make this a thing? That was it. Not denial. Not guilt. Not fear. Just irritation. Like I'd left the fridge open. I said nothing and walked out. I drove. I didn't know where, but I needed space. Somewhere to breathe. Somewhere the walls weren't painted with her voice. I ended up at my grandmother's old house, the one we never sold after she passed. No electricity. No running water. Just dust and memory. I hadn't been there in months. Maybe years. I pushed open the back door and it squeaked like it always had, like the house was whispering something to me. And I found it. In the kitchen drawer where she used to keep her crossword puzzles and peppermints. A letter. Unopened. Addressed to me. With my full name. Underlined. The handwriting was hers, my grandmother's. Shaky, elegant, final. I sat on the cold floor and opened it. What I read inside collapsed my entire reality. This is not hyperbole. It was a confession. A revelation. A warning. A fortune hidden deep enough to shake nations. Secrets so suffocating they choked out the light. And one letter, the one my wife tried to keep from me, that reduced everything I knew to ash. She stood by my side, all while betraying me in silence. It was my grandmother's final breath that gave me the truth. Real power reveals itself when love turns to lies. The letter wasn't long. It didn't need to be. It was written in pencil, with each word carved into the page like my grandmother had gripped the pencil too hard. Like she knew what she was writing would tear skin and bone. And it did. She started by saying she hoped I never had to read it. Then she told me why I had to. She said that when she was 17, she made a deal that would stain the next 3 generations of our family. That she carried something for someone. A secret, wrapped in symbols and locked away beneath the floorboards of an estate 2 hours north of here. She called it the root. She never explained what it was exactly, but she said men had killed for it. Governments had hunted it. And she was tasked to guard it until the right person came for it. But here's where my pulse started to sound like thunder in my ears. She said someone else had found out. She didn't know who, not exactly, but she suspected a woman. Someone close to me. Someone who had been in her house, uninvited. Someone who had asked about the letter before she died. She said, and I quote, "She came wearing perfume I didn't recognize. She called me Nana. I've never allowed her to. She left before I could scream." That's how the letter ended. No signature. No goodbye. Just those final 5 words, scratched and crooked, breaking lines across the last inch of the paper. Don't trust the woman beside you. I sat there for what must have been hours. I didn't blink. My mouth stayed open like I tried to speak and forgot how. Everything inside me felt like it was moving in reverse. My memories, my assumptions, every gentle moment I'd ever shared with her, they rewound and twisted. I couldn't see her without hearing that line. She came wearing perfume I didn't recognize. I knew that scent. She wore it whenever she went out with the girls. She never wore it around me. She said it was too spicy. And now I realized it wasn't for me. It never was. I rushed back home. I didn't call. I didn't knock. When I walked in, she was on the phone. She turned around slowly when she heard the door. And in that second, I watched her expression change like a movie flicking through scenes. Confusion. Annoyance. Alarm. Then calm. Always too calm. She ended the call without saying goodbye and slid her phone into the drawer. That same drawer where I found the card. I didn't say a word. I pulled the letter out of my back pocket and placed it on the counter between us. She didn't touch it. She just glanced down at it, then up at me, and for the first time since we'd met, I couldn't recognize her. She looked like someone pretending to wear her own face. Then she said it. So smooth, I almost believed her. Your grandmother was losing her mind at the end. You know that. No hesitation. No question. Just a full sentence, built in advance, already rehearsed. I didn't blink. I asked, "Were you in her house?" She tilted her head, eyes narrow. "What is this? Some kind of test?" I didn't move. "You were in her house," I repeated. "Wearing that perfume." That's when she stopped pretending. Her eyes dropped to the letter, and a corner of her mouth twitched. Not with fear. Not with guilt. With amusement. "You really think I'd need to sneak into some dusty old place to find what I already have?" That sentence rewired me, because it told me 2 things. She had gone there. She wasn't just cheating. She was stealing something. Something mine. Something I didn't even know I was supposed to protect. I asked her what she meant. What she had. Why she would lie to me, look me in the eye, and smirk like I was a pawn in a game I hadn't agreed to play. And she said this: "Your grandmother was just the vault. You're the key." I stepped back. I wasn't afraid of her. Not yet. But I understood finally that whatever had brought her into my life, it wasn't love. It wasn't even personal. It was strategy. She didn't flinch when I stepped back. If anything, she moved closer. Her voice softened, not in affection but precision. Like she was speaking to a vault that needed the right code. "You think this is about you and me?" she said. You think some half-written card and a dying woman's fairy tale mean anything compared to what's coming? I said nothing. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. My body wanted to throw a chair. My mind told me to listen. Because what came next felt like the kind of information people vanish over. She poured herself more wine, still in that stupid coffee mug, then sat down and motioned for me to join her. I didn't move. She took a sip, exhaled, and then she told me, "There's a manuscript, written in code, locked in a box your grandmother buried in a chapel near Ridgewell Creek. She was part of something, don't ask me what. A circle. A keeper's bloodline. She wasn't just eccentric. She was the final node in a network of people who swore to protect something from the world. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't money. Pause. It was knowledge. Ancient. Dangerous. And before she died, she passed the coordinates to someone. But not directly. She embedded it in a letter. She looked at me. That letter. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, something worse. Recognition. Because in the days before my grandmother passed, she'd insisted I come visit. She tried to give me something, an envelope she tucked under her pillow. I told her to rest. I said we'd talk the next, and when I came back, the envelope was gone. Now I knew why. I took a step toward her and said quietly, "You took it. Before she was cold, you took it." She smiled. She gave it willingly. "You just didn't see it. Don't lie to me again." "Oh, we're done lying," she said. "That's why I needed you to find the letter she didn't give me. The final piece." I picked up the letter from the counter. "Read it again. The part about the route. The estate 2 hours north." I asked her, "What's at that estate?" She stood, walked around the table until she was standing a breath away from me. "There's a lock there," she said. "One your blood opens." I laughed. The sound came out hollow, foreign. "So you married me to what? Inherit some ancient key code?" "Not marry," she said. "I was assigned to you." Silence. That word hit harder than any slap. Assigned. Not chosen. Not loved. Assigned. I felt my jaw tighten, my ribs fold inward. Assigned. For years. Every kiss, every fight, every silent morning was part of some cosmic to-do list. Then she said something that scraped the last bit of innocence out of me. "You weren't even the first option." She walked away, casually, like she hadn't just detonated my past with 8 words. She opened the freezer and pulled out an ice cube, pressed it to her wrist. I asked, because I had to, "Who was?" She didn't answer. Not directly, just whispered. "He died before she could pass it on. You were the backup plan." The air in the room changed. I felt it in my teeth. That buzz before something crashes. "You're not going to get it," I told her. "Whatever you're looking for, you're not getting it." She turned, ice cube melting in her hand, and said, "I already have it. I just need you to understand it." And that's when I realized she wasn't here to take the route. She needed me to activate it. And the more I resisted, the more desperate she would become. That I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I was afraid of what I'd dream. She didn't try to stop me when I packed a bag at 3:17 a.m. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable, as if daring me to leave and hoping I would. She said nothing as I walked past her. No questions. No threats. Just a look that said, "Go ahead. You're doing exactly what I need you to." I drove for 2 hours through fog so thick it felt like driving through smoke. Ridgewell Creek wasn't even on most maps. But my grandmother had written about it in the back of her crossword book, little notes scribbled in the margins. Coordinates. Strange symbols. One word circled twice, route. I arrived just after sunrise. The estate was enormous. Gothic. Shuttered. Half-eaten by vines. The front gate was rusted shut, so I climbed over it. My shoes sank into the soft earth as I made my way up the winding path. The house loomed like a judge. Windows like eyes. Silent and watching. I half expected her to be there waiting. But the place was empty. Dead quiet. Inside, the air smelled like forgotten time and something older, like wood rot mixed with old metal. Dust floated in the beams of sun cutting through the slats. I searched room after room, looking for anything. A hatch. A drawer. A floorboard out of place. Nothing. Until I found the piano. It sat in the middle of a parlor. Completely clean. Untouched by dust. The keys were pristine, like someone had wiped them every day for decades. I sat down, instinct pulling me. I hadn't played in years, but my hands moved without asking permission. 3 notes. Just 3. ED. And then I heard it. A shift beneath me. With groaning. A mechanical click. The floor in front of the piano cracked open. Just slightly. Enough. I pulled at it and found a hatch. Old. Reinforced. With an engraved plate bolted to the top. It read, "You are the branch. The root remembers." I stared at it, heart slamming in my chest. There was a keyhole. But not for a key. It was a small circular socket, rimmed with copper. It looked like it was designed for something biological. And that's when I remembered her words. "You're the key." I touched the copper ring with my finger. Nothing. But when I pressed my palm against it, skin to metal, the socket lit faintly. Warm. A glow beneath the surface. And then the hatch unlatched. It opened into a narrow staircase descending into complete blackness. The air down there wasn't just cold, it was ancient. It tasted like a place where no one had breathed for centuries. I should have stopped, called someone, taken a second to think. But I didn't. I went down. The walls were lined with symbols I didn't recognize. Etched into stone, lit by weak emergency bulbs strung across the ceiling like veins. At the bottom was a room, circular, domed, and in the center a box, black, obsidian, no visible opening. I stepped closer and the air got thicker. Not metaphorically, literally. Breathing took effort, like the air was deciding whether I was allowed. Then I heard a sound. Not from the room. From my phone. One notification. Just one. From a number I didn't recognize. Step back. That box doesn't belong to you. I stared at it. My blood turned to ice. Then a second message. It belongs to her. I turned around, half expecting her to be there. But I was alone. Still. I felt her. Somewhere above me. Watching. Waiting. This wasn't about the box. It was about what I'd just done to open it. And now something had been triggered. I didn't touch the box. Not at first. The moment I turned my back to it, the room felt wrong. Too quiet. Too intentional. Like the silence itself was part of a design, measured, calculated, weaponized. I stared at the text again. Still glowing on my screen. It belongs to her. Who was she? The woman upstairs who shared my bed? Or someone older? Someone buried in memory, cloaked in my bloodline? My grandmother's words returned with new weight. Don't trust the woman beside you. There was a low hum now coming from inside the box. Not mechanical. Organic. Like something alive was waking from a centuries-long sleep. I circled it. No seams. No latch. No hinge. Just surface, smooth and black and wrong. It absorbed light. The longer I looked, the less I saw. I crouched, ran my fingers near it but didn't touch. The air around it vibrated. Not loud, but physical. Like sound converted into gravity. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And then the emergency bulbs above blew out in a quick chain, pop, 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 one by one, until I was standing in pure darkness with a humming box and a heartbeat too loud to be mine. I pulled my phone out. Flashlight on. I scanned the room. The symbols on the wall were glowing faintly. Pale blue. Faint pulses moving clockwise, like a circuit. The box was the center of it. And I was the current. I took one step back, and my phone buzzed again. Same number. Now you've done it. Then the screen went black. No signal. No light. Only the humming. Only the root. And that's when I heard her voice. Not in the room. In my head. Clear. Crisp. Familiar. You weren't supposed to open it without me. My breath caught. I spun toward the staircase, but saw nothing. Heard nothing. The voice again. Softer now. We were supposed to do it together. It was hers. The woman I married. But not as I'd known her. Not polished. Not performative. Raw. Ancient. Like a thread that had been stretched through time and was now fraying loose. And that's when the walls began to whisper. Not metaphor. Actual whispers. Multiple. Not English. Not anything I'd ever heard. a language shaped in smoke and rust. I backed toward the stairwell. I didn't run, couldn't run. My legs were heavier than bone. I didn't look back at the box. I should have, but I didn't. I made it up the stairs, breathing in hard bursts. Slammed the hatch shut, locked it, sat on the dusty floor and just stared at the old piano. That's when I noticed the mirror, above the fireplace, and what it reflected. Her, standing behind me. But when I turned around, no one. The room was empty, but the glass was still fogged. Like someone had just whispered against it.by the time I got home, the sky had turned a shade I didn't recognize. Not night, not morning, just suspended. Like time had been stretched too thin across the horizon. I don't even remember driving. Only the silence. The kind that builds in your ears when the world decides you're no longer quite welcome. I left the front door unlocked. I wanted her to know I was back. I wanted a confrontation. But the house was silent. Lights off. No music, no wine, no smell of perfume slithering through the hallway. Only one thing was different. On the kitchen counter, next to the card I never moved, sat a new envelope. Unmarked. I didn't touch it. Not right away. Instead, I called out her name. Not like a husband calling to a wife, but like a hunter warning what it's hunting. No answer. I checked every room. Nothing. No signs of life. The closet still full. Her charger still plugged in. Her half-empty water bottle sweating on the nightstand. She'd been here. Recently. But she wasn't anymore. So I went back to the envelope. Inside was a photo. Of me. From behind. Standing in front of the box. Taken moments before the lights went out in that room beneath the estate. It wasn't blurry. It wasn't rushed. It was centered. Framed. Focused. And at the bottom, in ink the color of old blood, just 5 words, now it's in your shadow. I flipped the photo over. One more line, the mirror let it through. The next few hours were a blur of adrenaline and disbelief. I checked every mirror in the house. Covered them. Turned them to face the wall. I even smashed the one in the hallway. It felt theatrical at the time, like something a mad Ann would do. But I wasn't mad. I was trying to keep something from crawling back through. But when the sun finally rose, I realized something worse. It wasn't trying to get in. It was already here. It started small. My reflection lagged behind me by a second in the bathroom. The hallway light flickered when I walked past it, but only once. Then never again. Like it had learned my rhythm. The basement door, which had been sealed since we moved in, now stood slightly open every time I passed it. And then the hum. The same low, vibrating tone from the box, now in my walls. Faint, but constant. I called her. Not because I wanted her back. I needed answers. Straight ones. Not riddles in envelopes. Not whispers in my head. She didn't answer. But 20 minutes later, a message arrived. It's inside now. You opened it. It belongs to you until it chooses another. That phrase, until it chooses another. So this wasn't a gift. It was a curse. Passed like a sickness. Transferred like a parasite. And she'd spent years waiting to pass it into me. Like she was never the vault. Just the vessel. That's when I saw it. A single fingerprint on my bathroom mirror. Upside down. Pressed from the inside. I didn't sleep. Not because I refused to. Because it wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, it pulled me somewhere else. Not a dream. Not a nightmare. A memory that didn't belong to me. The first time it happened, I was in a field. Moonlit. Windless. A single tree stood at the center, leafless and humming with the same pulse as the box. Beneath it, 2 people stood whispering in a language I didn't understand. One of them wore her face. The woman I married. But it wasn't her. Not exactly. Her eyes were too deep. Her skin too still. Like something was wearing her. I woke with a gasp. The air around me felt warped, lighter on one side. Like the room had shifted while I slept. The window was cracked open. I never opened it. And on the floor? Dirt. A single pile of it. Dark, packed, and fresh. Right below the mirror I had forgotten to cover. I approached it slowly. My reflection was there. Sort of. It looked like me. Moved like me. But when I raised my left hand, it hesitated. Flickered. Then raised its right. A second late. Mirrors don't do that. I whispered, "What are you?" It didn't answer. But it smiled. And then the glass fogged from the inside again. Not just one breath. 5. 5 distinct, pulsing patches of condensation. like fingertips pressed softly from the other side. That's when I felt the house change. It no longer felt empty. It felt occupied. And the air buzzed with a kind of tension you only feel during eclipses or earthquakes, when the earth itself is warning you are not in control anymore. I checked the front door. Locked. Checked the back. Still bolted. But the basement door, the one I'd avoided for years, was open. Wide. I told myself not to go down. But my legs disagreed. Each step creaked with a sound that felt rehearsed. Like it had heard this walk before. The bottom of the staircase opened into pitch black. I pulled my phone out. No service. The light flickered. I stepped onto the basement floor and saw it, a figure. Standing in the far corner. Still. Too still. The shape of a person. But no face. Just a blur where features should be. Like a smear across glass. I turned to run. But the door shut. Hard. The lights snapped off. I heard breathing behind me. Not from the corner. From the ceiling. I turned on my flashlight again and aimed it upward. And there it was. My face. Not looking down at me. Looking past me. Into the darkness behind me. I spun. Nothing. But when I turned back to the ceiling, it was gone. No more reflection. Just the quiet throb of the house breathing through the walls. That night, I didn't try to sleep. I sat in the living room, lights on, watching every mirror in the house from a single angle. I didn't blink. Not once. Because now I understood something. The box wasn't just opened. It had released a fragment. Something that waited in glass. And it knew me better than I knew myself. Because it had been watching. And now it was learning. I heard the car before I saw it. Early morning, just past 5, when the sky still had that sickly bruise of pre-dawn. A black SUV pulled into the driveway like it had always belonged there. It didn't idle. It stopped, clicked, and silence followed. She stepped out. Hair tied up. No makeup. Wearing one of my old shirts, the one with the frayed collar and a single missing button near the bottom. The one she used to borrow and never return. It was a calculated move. She knew the weight of that shirt. But today it didn't feel nostalgic. It felt like armor. I didn't wait for her to knock. I opened the door and just stared. She didn't smile. Didn't speak. Just walked past me like the house still belonged to her. Inside, she took one look around. Noticed the mirrors faced the wall. The photo still on the table. The smashed glass in the hallway. The dirt by the bathroom. The quiet hum beneath everything. Her lips parted barely. So, you met it. I didn't answer. She poured herself water. Drank the whole glass. Then leaned against the counter and said, "It's not going to stop. You know that, right? What is it?" I asked. She exhaled. Looked older than I'd ever seen her. "It's what they buried. The root. It's not a thing. Not in the way we understand. It's awareness. Condensed. Weaponized. Patient. And you fed it." "I didn't feed anything." "You opened it," she snapped. "You felt the hum. You listened. That's how it enters. Curiosity. Not invitation." I felt my fists clench. "You could have stopped this." She looked at me sharply. "I tried. For 3 years. I tried. I stalled the others. I redirected searches. I lied. A lot. But I kept it out. Until you found the letter. You broke into my grandmother's house." "I did worse than that," she said. And her voice dipped like ice water. "I asked her for mercy. I begged her not to pass the coordinates. But she said you were next. Not because of fate. Because you were stubborn. She said you'd never let a locked door stay locked." Silence. The hum in the walls grew louder. It didn't like her talking. She heard it too. She leaned in close. "It wants a form. Something consistent. That's what it needs. To anchor." I stared. "You mean a body?" "No," she said. "A life." My blood went cold. "That's what the mirrors are for," she whispered. "Not to look back. To copy. To learn you. Your mannerisms. Your rhythm. Your presence. Once it's perfect, you'll blink. And you'll just be watching. From the other side. And you let this happen." Her eyes turned hard. "I'm here to offer you a choice. No more riddles," I said. She nodded. "Either you give it what it wants. Let it complete the pattern. Let it become you. And it'll leave the rest of us alone. Or you take it with you. Go somewhere empty. Stay alive." Keep moving. Keep distracting it. Die without letting it settle. Starve it. And you. She laughed. Not kindly. I was never part of the equation. I was the rope between 2 points. It doesn't need me anymore. I looked at her. For the first time, I saw the truth under her skin: exhaustion. Not just from lies. From carrying something she could never put down. I asked her one last thing. Why me? She looked me in the eyes and said, because you're not special. You're just next. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in black velvet. She set it on the table and walked out without saying goodbye. I unwrapped it slowly. It was a mirror, but not mine. It was from the basement, and in its reflection, I wasn't standing. I was sitting, smiling, waiting. I didn't touch the mirror for 3 days. I wrapped it back in velvet, locked it in the garage, and left the lights on in every room. I stopped sleeping. I ate only when the house let me. I say let because by then, I'd begun to understand something deeply wrong about my surroundings. I was no longer living in the house. The house was now living through me. My routines became mirrored. When I showered, the water turned cold at the exact same minute every time. My footsteps echoed once, then again, half a second too late, like an unseen imitation trying to perfect the choreography. My reflection, even in my phone screen, started blinking just a moment too slowly. I was being shadowed, perfectly, relentlessly. But here's the part that still makes my stomach lurch. One night, I fell asleep for 20 minutes. That's it. Just 20. When I woke up, my phone was in a different spot. My toothbrush was wet, and the photo on my fridge, the one from our wedding, had been replaced. Same pose, same people. Only this time, I was smiling with teeth. I never smile like that. I remember the photo session. My smile was tight, polite, weary. This one was satisfied. It had used my body. It had practiced. I checked the security camera in the hallway. Footage ran until 3:03 a.m. Then static. It resumed at 3:21. 18 minutes missing. When the feed returned, I saw myself walking back into the frame. Shirtless. Calm. I paused in front of the mirror and placed my hand on it. Not like I was testing it. Like I was comforting it. The next night, I heard movement downstairs. I crept down with a kitchen knife, still wearing yesterday's clothes, skin tight with adrenaline. No footsteps. No lights. But the fridge door was ajar, and on the kitchen table sat a single orange peeled into a perfect spiral. My grandmother used to do that. She said only people with patience and control could peel it that way. I hadn't eaten an orange in years. So I asked it aloud. What do you want? And from the dark hall, a voice answered. Mine. It didn't shout. It didn't growl. It whispered. Like it had always lived in the walls and finally decided to introduce itself. You're not me, I said. It replied, I'm better. I could hear my own cadence in it. The rhythm of my voice. The pauses. The same words I'd once used when justifying stupid decisions. It wasn't mocking. It was becoming. The next morning, I found the velvet-wrapped mirror gone. In its place, an open journal. My handwriting. 3 pages full. I read them. It was me describing the estate, the basement, the moment the box opened, but differently. As if I had invited it. As if I had wanted it. The last line chilled me. The mirror doesn't show who you are. It shows what you'll become once no one remembers the difference. And then a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole. It was me. No difference. Except the smile. Too wide. Too sure. And behind that version of me? A second figure. Her. Not as she was, but as she had been in the memory under the tree. The one wearing her skin like history. I didn't open the door. Not because I was afraid, though I was, but because I knew opening it wasn't a choice. It was a surrender. And surrender now meant extinction. They stood there for hours. Me and her. Our copies. My smile never shifted. Hers barely blinked. They didn't knock again. Didn't speak. Just stood. 2 reflections waiting for the glass to thin. At one point, I sat against the door, feeling the cold from their shadows leaking through the wood. And I remembered something my grandmother said the night before she died, her breath wheezing, fingers curled around mine like she was trying to root something into me. The lie wears the truth like a mask. But the truth always remembers the heat of its own skin. I didn't understand then. I do now. The only way to stop them wasn't to fight. You can't fight your own memory once it's been stolen. The only way to stop them was to outremember them. So I gathered every artifact of myself I could still believe was real, my journal, an old voicemail from my father, a ticket stub from the night she said she loved me and probably meant it. I held them close and whispered my name again and again. Not just my name, my life. Every mistake. Every scar. Every terrible song I used to hum while driving. Every regret. Every choice. And the house, it began to hum with me. Not against. Not around. With. Because the truth was this, the root didn't want a body. It wanted permission. It didn't want to destroy me. It wanted to be chosen. And I never had. The knock came again. But not at the front door. At the bathroom mirror. I walked in slowly. The mirror, the last one I hadn't smashed, was vibrating. Like something inside wanted out. But this time, the reflection didn't match me. It was sitting down. Tied to a chair. Mouth gagged. Eyes screaming. And that's when I knew. That was me. The real me. I wasn't standing, I was inside it. Watching. The copy had taken over. And it was showing me mercifully, mockingly, what I look like now. Trapped behind the glass. The knock was from the inside. That version of me outside? It had already made its decision. It had become me so completely, even the house had accepted it. Even I had accepted it. And she, the woman who brought this curse, stood beside it with her hand on its shoulder like a mother showing off her grown child. The final truth burned its way into my brain like acid. Real power doesn't take. It waits until you give. And I had. With my questions. My curiosity. My need to know. I leaned forward, palms against the glass, trying to scream, but the reflection didn't move. Didn't flinch. Because I wasn't the reflection anymore. I was the echo. The mask. And as the mirror went dark, as the last light of myself faded into the silence, I heard my own voice speak one last time from the other side. He remembers enough. That's all we needed. So now I leave the story behind. Written, yes, by my hands, but not my voice. He's out there, living as me, and I'm just the last flicker of memory, before the mirror forgets me completely.